Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by the law offices of Ogle, Elrod, and Burrill. You name it, they can handle it, from car accidents to family law, from criminal defense cases to workers' comp. If you turn to Ogle, Elrod, and Burrill, you will get direct and consistent access to experienced attorneys, an entire team of them, dedicated to your cause and to you. Ogle, Elrod, and Burrill. All right. Want to remind folks they can join us later today on sportsource.tv. That's our website where we archive the show every week, but we also put an overtime segment on there on most Sundays. Today, after the show, we're going to talk a little bit about what is the single biggest key to Tennessee's 2014 football season. If you follow us on Twitter, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen, follow us on Twitter. I'll tell you when that overtime segment is up and running on sportsource.tv. So do that. Follow us on Twitter and go to sportsource.tv. You hear this one all the time. A good coach can coach them up. I heard that last year. That sounds good, but if that were just snap your fingers, a good coach can fix it. Nick Saban wouldn't have gone 6-6 in his first year at Alabama, wouldn't have lost to Louisiana Monroe at home. Yeah. If you've got a better team than I do, maybe on occasion I can beat you. Butch Jones beating South Carolina last year, a perfect example. Knocked South Carolina out of the SEC championship game, maybe a BCS championship berth. But week in, week out, the guy with the most talent is probably going to win most games. My question then, when you look at Tennessee's talent, the things we've talked about today, you look at that schedule, can Butch Jones coach these guys up enough to the point where it's going to have a real big impact on the record? Or do you look at that talent and schedule and say, I think they're probably going to be in a range that most people have already talked about, 5 wins, 6 wins most?
I think they're in the 5 and 6 win category. Now, the thing where you can coach them up is how competitive are you against some of the better teams. You know, we've talked about how it may be difficult for them to hang on the field with Oklahoma. They'd have to do a heck of a coaching job to be competitive in that game. The interesting mix to me, though, is you've got a lot of these newcomers. We've talked about, is it going to be offense or defense, but we know there are going to be a lot of freshmen that are going to play. So when you play them and when they're ready to play is going to be a big issue. You don't want to throw them out there before they're ready and they get burned. So I think getting them up to snuff on some of that's going to help. It did help, I think, that 14, I can't say freshmen because I think there's a junior college in there, 14 newcomers in the spring came in, and I think that helped them. But here's the thing, too. With some of the, quote, veterans, and there are not a lot of veterans, they can help bring along some of these younger players as well. But I just don't see coaching this team up to 7 or 8 wins, which I've heard from some people.
No, I don't think. I agree with Jimmy 100%. I think when you go out, you've got the talent you've got, and the coaching differences really show up when you've got even teams. That's when I think, okay, now we find out who can coach and who can't coach. And I'm not going to beat up on any former coaches at Tennessee, but for years Tennessee looked like they were either even or superior with Florida and couldn't beat them. Who did everybody think was the better coach in those scenarios? But right now, I don't think you can ding Butch Jones for not coaching these guys up when the gap is just too big right now.
And by not mentioning a name, no one out there could figure out what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Really. You put the LeNay on that one.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? Can coaching them up really improve this team's record this year, or is this going to be 5 or 6 wins tops anyway?
In football, I really struggle with how much of an impact I think that has. In basketball, I'm 100% believer that you can coach them up. You look, Bo Ryan at Wisconsin takes 3 stars, doesn't get many parade All-Americas, and year after year they win 28 games or whatever. But in football, it does make an impact, but I don't think it makes as big of an impact.
It is what it is to me.
There's too many moving parts in football.
And how many times have we heard it's not the X's and O's, it's the Billies and Joes? And I think that's true.
I've only heard Billies and Joes once, and that was just
Jimmy
Jones. Okay, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. I didn't want to mention any names.
Keep me in there.
But there's really no replacement to me for the experience of having players that have gone on the road in a tough environment and won football games. And that's what you don't have right now.
Right.
In a lot of cases with Tennessee. You look at your SEC record for the past 6 years that we've pointed out.
Yeah, the road games are just horrible.
Yeah, so that's what takes to me so much time to build is the confidence that, hey, we can get this done. We've gone here, we've won this game, and you don't have that.
Well, there are isolated cases, in my opinion, where a coach made a huge difference, and I'll take Auburn.
Yeah.
If they don't have Gus Malzahn and he doesn't run what he does, there's no way, in my opinion, they get there. But that's That's an exception.
That team that he inherited was recruited for that system.
It was.
I mean,
It was.
Which is not the case. He walked in and got a bunch of top 10 recruiting classes that were sitting there because he'd helped put them together before his 1 year at Arkansas
Right.
State. Butch Jones, as we know, inherited mess left by Derek Dooley, which is a totally different ball game.
And some fans,
I agree with you. Coaches can make
some fans think it's like a magical pregame pep talk too. It really got the boys fired up to go out and win this game, and that's like the win one for the Gipper speech. That just I don't think really happens much anymore at all.
There's
Well, I
some
mean, even the Gipper said win one. It works once. I mean,
Well, there are a lot of ex-players who will do the you just got to want it more. You know, there's a lot of talk about that, and I don't believe that. I think you're talking about when I hear that out of a guy, I'm like, I look at him and it's like, yes, and you played in the NFL for 10 years. It's easy for you to say you just got to want it more. Go tell that to the guy who played at Eastern Utah Tech who didn't make it in the NFL. I'm sure he wanted it as much as you did, but he couldn't get it done. In terms of coaching him up, I just think that the expectations are too high on Butch Jones that people think he can take an average roster and make them better. And I got a lot of that last year. A lot of folks, I know not everybody thinks that way, but a lot of folks contacted me via email, the tweets. It's all, a good coach would have coached them up. Look, you give Bill Belichick Kentucky this year, and they're not going to win the SEC title. Good coaches can't coach them that much up.
well,
very quickly.
go back to when Tennessee played UT Martin a few years ago, and I was sitting watching somebody who wanted UT Martin's roster at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And that was a bad Tennessee
right.
team that beat them by 60.
And it was East, and everybody wanted the East
So
Tennessee
coach 'em
kids.
up.
Yeah.
Coach 'em up. Okay, just a couple of notes to close today. One, thanks to Seth and Big Tom down at Echo Bistro in West Knoxville. I don't know if you've been down there yet. Try out Echo Bistro West Knoxville. Fantastic. Two, wanted to say hello to an old high school buddy, Chris Martin, and his daughter, Brooklyn, down in Etowah. Thank you for watching. It's good to know I have one high school friend left. Three, we end
Yeah,
today.
two then,
Oh,
back in the day.
That's right. I'm still batting 500. Three, we end today with the theme from the Rockford Files. One, because it's a cool song. Two, because I'm a huge James Garner fan. He passed away last Sunday and I didn't mention it. And three, because my first car was a Pontiac Firebird that I loved. Because the Rockford Files. It's my show. I'll do what I want. See you next Sunday.
The views expressed in this forum do not necessarily reflect those of WATE 6 or of 6 Sports. This has been a paid program.